Government says it is committed to adhering to the United Nations voluntary guidelines on sustainable fishing. Deputy Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, Francis Kingsley Atukujo, tells Joy News an ongoing review of the Fisheries Act 2002 will incorporate the principles which seek to protect fisheries resources for future generations. He was speaking on the sidelines of a stakeholder forum on how Ghana can legally adopt the international guidelines in order to responsibly manage use of the country's land and sea. Adelaide Arthur reports.
The Committee on World Food Security of the United Nations endorsed the guidelines on responsible management of land, forest and fisheries resources in 2002 with the aim of making the world food secure. Though these guidelines are voluntary, countries are expected to incorporate them into laws to ensure that exploitation of land and sea resources is done in a sustainable manner. This is why NGOs, Environmental Justice Foundation and Hen Puano, who are implementing the EU-funded Farjumankodu project, brought together stakeholders in the fisheries sector to deliberate on how these international guidelines could be applied to improve fishing activities. The principles, for instance, encourage protection of women's rights and empowerment, elimination of forced labor, and local participation in the management of fisheries resources.
All over the world, it is being shown by evidence collected on the ground that wherever you increase the ownership and participation of local communities in the management of the natural resources, you are able to get a better yield, you are able to get sustainable development of the resource, and you're able to get best returns from it. Because once the local communities own the process and they are part of the decision-making process, they wouldn't flout the law. They would rather work with the state to protect the law.
The Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development is pleased with a new co-management policy which is expected to empower local leaders to enforce laws on sustainable fishing. According to Deputy Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, Francis Kingsley Atukujo, the policy is in line with the UN's guiding principles. He adds that the Fisheries Act, which is currently under review, will align with the international guidelines in order to protect fish for present and future generations.
We want FAO to look at the Fisheries Act vis-a-vis the VGGT and see how these two align. We want to make sure that international agreements on us, like the post-state measure, stock assessment and all those things, are factored into the Act. And that is why the VGT education at this time is quite important, because we don't want to have a document where after 5 years we are coming back to review. We want to ensure that if these are the new guidelines, then they should be in our document. We should be able to capture this.
Statistics show that 10% of the country's population depends on the fisheries sector, even though fish stock continues to decline. Projects like Farjumankodu, however, are meant to revive fishing in the country.
The main topics the project is working on is, first one, the fight against illegal fishing and supporting community involvement in this monitoring, control and surveillance. The second component, and that's what the one we are here today about, is to support co-management and empowerment of small-scale fishermen and small-scale fishmonger.
Such projects, according to stakeholders, will yield better results if government improves upon how the fisheries sector is managed. Adelaide Arthur, Joy News, Accra.